Welcome to Simply Robotics, the podcast, a podcast exploring the animation industry, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Monique. You can find me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics, SimplyRobotix. And remember, when listening to the show, use the hashtag SimplyRoboticsPod to join on the conversation. So, Black History Month is over. But we are now at Women's History Month. So unlike last month, I'm only going to be doing one episode really about women in and adjacent to the animation, media, entertainment industry, because I have a fun episode with a guest that's like been in the vault, and I kind of don't want to wait till April to put that out because, you know, we're working and we're moving and stuff like that. So this past weekend, I went to the Athena Film Festival, and I attended The Present and Future of Women in Animation panel. So here's just a quick description of the panel. It says, recent research from the Annenberg Inclusion Institute has shown that the field of animation is one of the few areas in the entertainment industry where women are accelerating. However, the data is more complicated than surface impressions. Women are leading at the top, and many women are working at the entry level, but they are not rising in the ranks. Why is this, and what can be done? In the panel, what's her name? Dr. Stacy Smith, and the panelists, they were discussing the current field of animation and what can be done to get women across the pipeline of the animation industry. So it was moderated by Jinko Goto. She's produced animated features for over 25 years. She's also the producer for Klaus. The panelists were Claudia Spinelli. She is Nickelodeon's Senior Vice President of Animation Department, and I believe she works, Animation Development. So that's actually what I was about to say. I'm not reading correctly. And I think that's primarily for their TV shows, TV programming. I don't know why I keep having to clear my throat. Next is Shung Chin Mo. She's an artist and educator with experience in higher education, production, technology, and management. She's the inaugural BFA animation chair at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. I'm so happy for Shung. I've been aware of her basically since I was in undergrad, and seeing from the outside her trajectory to becoming a chair of the department, like also the animation department at SVA, that's the school I went to. The film and animation were together, and computer art animation, the department I was in, was separate. So I'm happy they broke out film and animation, because that allows the animation department to really get the attention that I feel that they had to share with the film department. And I don't think that was, fair for them. And I feel like they couldn't have, they couldn't have had a better person. She has been in the trenches and has been advocating and doing so much work. And she's so passionate about the industry and wanting to see students succeed that I really feel like she's the ideal person for this, Next, there was Candy Kugel, who is a member of AMPAS and the TV Academy. She has created over a dozen award-winning animated shorts that are included in the Museum of Modern Art's film archives. Also, Ellen Sue is a director and designer at Nathan Love, as well as a professor at the School of Visual Arts. Another slightly fun fact, I believe Ellen graduated from my major in 2013, so that was just about 2 years after I graduated. And it's been very good from the outside to also see Ellen's career journey. Like she spoke on this panel about having to basically start over. She, like me, was doing 3D in undergrad, and by the time she graduated, by the time she was entering the workforce, she realized she didn't want to do 3D anymore. So you have to build yourself up, redefine yourself, and show other people that though you do have this experience and this knowledge and capability, you actually want to do X, Y, Z instead. And here's proof of why you're qualified and are able to do so. So I wanted to bring up this panel because they shared this deck prior to the actual panel. The Dr. Stacy Smith had this deck where she was talking about statistics and a lot of data about women in the animation industry. And there's a link in the show notes to not only the little write-up about this, but to the actual document itself, so you can see the statistics if you want to. So some things that I wanted to mention from this was that out of 120 animated films, only 17% of them have female lead characters or co-lead characters. Only 37% of women are producers of animated films versus 15% of women who are producers of live action films. So I actually found that to be quite disturbing. Also, only 5% of women of color are producers of animated films versus only 1% of women of color are producers of live action films. And I just feel like there's so many more live action films that I thought the numbers and percentages would have been a little bit higher in that respect. So also, out of 100 of the top animated television series in 2018, only 24 were developed by women and only 3 were developed by a woman of color. And lastly, in 2018, 19% of the writers for animated feature films were women and only 4% of the writers were women of color. So unfortunately, this document doesn't break down the women of color percentage into races, because I would have liked to see the breakdown of it being Black women, Hispanic women, even having like Asian and Indian women and Native American women, and to really see what that makeup looks like. So as I mentioned in my first episode, as well as the episode before this, episode 12, I want to create, direct, produce, and ultimately, create opportunities for other Black women and Black girls to work in this industry. And seeing this deck, it was just really eye-opening for me to the fact that my own career, it seems like things have been progressing, but like the odds are really against me. And that's not even to be pessimistic. It's just like, these are the facts of what I'm looking at. And so like, I've been thinking, it's only been like a day. I actually saw this go around Twitter earlier, like a couple months ago, but seeing it at this panel, I'm just like, I'm still like absorbing it. And I'm just thinking like, wow, if only, what was it? 3 of the 100 animated television series were developed by women of color. Where does Black women fall in that 3 women? Like, So I feel like the odds are definitely against me, and I'm not scared or intimidated by that. But I'm just also wondering, like, what would it take for me, and what would it take of me to be a part of this, like, 1 to 4% of women in color that are holding leadership roles and, really a part of the industry in that capacity. So with that being said, I also learned that women only hold about 20% of the creative roles in the animation industry. So the international organization called Women in Animation has pledged to raise that number to 50% by 2025. And this deck did show that over time, things have been increasing. It's up to 20%, but there's still 30% to go. In 5 years, I have a link to their website with this pledge and a video about it. It's also in the show notes. So with all that being said, today's episode, as you've seen by like the podcast art and by the title, this is the second installment of the DiverseToons Women Taking the Lead panel audio. So this event happened in March of 2019, where I got a couple young women that work they don't directly work in the animation industry. Some of them work more in like VR or augmented reality, or work doing maybe like commercial work and like post-production or special effects. But the point of having them together was just to show that these are the different creative positions and like roles that women can hold and obtain. And sometimes we feel that, especially in New York, that you go to school and you get an animation degree, or maybe you do some online training and you think that, well, I don't know what I can do. I don't know what opportunities may be out there. So it's important for me to have these panels really focused and centered around women and women of color, showing, again, the different type of careers and opportunities and the jobs and the types of endeavors that we can get into, but also helping to bridge that gap of like seeing yourself possibly doing something in the industry. So, like I said, with all that being said, I've talked a bit about a much or whatever I'm trying to say. Let's just get into this, and I will see and talk and hear from y'all later. Bye.
First off, hi everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Monique Henry-Hudson. I'm co-founder of DiverseToons. DiverseToons is a traveling animation panel series. Our two panels are Black in Animation and Women in Multimedia, and we are looking forward to expanding beyond that as things have been picking up for us. The purpose of the panels is just to, first and foremost, hear the professional, the career journeys from people who work in the industries that we, if we're not working in, we're trying to work in, and to build our network and just continue to create exposure and awareness. So like I said, my name is Monique, and I'm joined by three lovely women to my left, and we're all going to be sharing how we got into the industry, our what it's been like for us, and how and if our race and gender have played a part in us navigating our careers. So I won't say I got my start, but I attended the School of Visual Arts. I was a computer art major. I graduated in 2011. Since then, I did like a bunch of odd jobs, like very typical, trying to just make sure you make ends meet with retail, working for film festivals. I did Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, a couple art festivals in Brooklyn, and finally I got a job at Blue Sky Studios in 2015. I was a production assistant for the render department first, and then I moved into the story department. Originally, I didn't even want to be in story. I went to SVA to be a 3D animator. So I wanted to be in the animation department, but story ended up opening up, and that turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Being in the story department, it helped me to really solidify that I wanted to produce indirect animation content, and I felt like that was the best department to be in because you got to see how the first images and creating and transitioning from script to what we end up seeing the final production. I was up in Blue Sky for 2.5 years up until last year where I left because Blue Sky's in Connecticut, I live in Queens, and it was a very, very long commute. Yeah, and on bad days, it was very hard to keep my spirit alive, so to speak. So I left last year and started basically hustling, starting all over, doing odd jobs again. And through that opportunity, I was volunteering for Black Web Fest, and I had the opportunity to create an animation panel. And from that, people just wanted to see more. They missed it. They felt like other people could benefit from it, and we started this panel. So that's like how I got to here right now. I'm right here, and I have to my left Julie. Would you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh yeah. So actually, I'm Olivia.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's
so
okay.
I really
Yeah. So yeah. So hi, my name is Olivia Bay. I originally come from Korea, and currently I'm working at Verizon as the 3D journalist at their 5G Dev Lab team. So we focus a lot on VR, AR research and development. So I work as 3D journalist there, and I'm coming from film background, like back in Korea. And then got here for grad school in the School of Visual Art. I did a computer art major there, and then after I graduated, I got an opportunity to be part of Viacom Next, which is a Viacom's VR team at the time, 3 years ago. So I started as a VR artist by accident almost, because I was looking for a job. They offered me an opportunity, like, oh, do you want to be working at VR AR? And at the time, I had no experience whatsoever. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't know anything about it. But I was fortunate enough to like, they letting me in, like they taught me everything, and I had to like just go through and just like, learn as I go. And I'm fortunate enough to be in this space now that like I contribute like making VR and AR alive and like making sure all the project and product we're doing is relevant to all people and almost not just our company itself, but like all more than lucky to be part of like being like make my voice heard as like part of a international and also women and Asian person. So I think that's exciting to be in like the art industry right now at the moment. And passing the mic to Hi, my name's Lauren. I actually work here at the mill. So I started going to school for CG. I originally wanted to be a painter, and so my parents were like, you need to have a little bit more of a well-rounded education. So I kind of, explored a bit and figured out, okay, so I can take it to the digital level since we didn't really have that kind of education in my high school. I just did a bit of searching and I found 3D animation. It's like, okay, I'm going to school for 3D animation. Okay, I don't want to be an animator. I want to actually be a modeler. And step by step, I figured out what I wanted to do. I went to school at Drexel University, graduated in 2010. And between like 2010 and 2013, I did a lot of odd jobs as well. From like arranging flowers to glazing hams, and then
That's nice.
eventually I got into a startup, startup studio for ad work and basically whatever kind of bits and bobs we could find to work on. And so I got a bit of skill there and eventually decided to move to New York and take kind of a big step back in my mind and become a runner here. And so I made coffees, I cleaned up suites, I, was an intern. And then when I found time late at night, I would study CG with whoever was staying late. And through that, I kind of was able to get better and figure out more what I wanted to do in the professional industry because it's so vastly different than what I thought I wanted to do in school based on the expectations. So I'm now a 3D generalist and living the dream.
Hi, I'm Julie. I started and run a small animation motion graphics studio in Bushwick, Brooklyn, called Kaleida Studio. And it's kind of been a slow burn to get to this point. I went to school for graphic design at Boston University, and they have a very strong fine art program as well, which is my background comes from a lot of fine art, painting, drawing, and a lot of dance and choreography. And animation kind of happened by accident because we had like one animation project at my school, and it like clicked so quickly for me. I think because I grew up dancing and like working with timelines in that sense. So I just immediately realized that that is what I needed to do because it combined my fine art background and my dance background. But when I graduated, like my portfolio was terrible because like we didn't have any projects at school that really I could focus on that for. So I applied to a ton of animation studios like all over the world and no one got back to me because my portfolio was terrible. So we just ended up again like working in restaurants and just in my free time I was like, I know that I can make animations that are as good as what I'm seeing everywhere. I just need the time to do it. So, get a job that can pay your bills and then spend all your free time making whatever you want to make. And that did pay off, and I started getting freelance jobs from friends and friends of friends and people that are seeing my stuff on Facebook, and started with music videos, which I think is how a lot of people get started. And I kind of poured everything that I had into those pieces because those are my opportunities to prove what I could do. And it's been 6 years, I guess, since we officially started the business. And we've definitely evolved since then. One of my best friends who I started the company with has moved on to do her own art. And now I run it, and I have a team of between 2 to 12 freelance animators at a time, depending on the project. And we now are focusing mostly on motion graphics and animation for documentaries. And that was also kind of an accident. But I actually really love being in that world because we are contributing to telling stories that I find really important and really life-changing and inspiring. And a lot of these clients as well kind of let me and the team pour a lot of art into these graphics because if you're thinking of like, a documentary that's about a time farther away in history where there isn't much archival
archival, then you have to create all of the visuals from scratch. So I had a lot of fun like pulling inspiration from whatever the art movement at the time was. So we did a piece that was based on a lot of like Bauhaus graphic design. We did another piece that was based on like newspaper and vintage and like paper cut prints, and it's just been a lot of fun. So I'm very thankful of where I am now, and I think to honor that, I actually just started taking a business course for female creative entrepreneurs because, oh my god, I need help. It's like when you start out as an artist and you're like, great, I'm making all the things and all, it's all amazing and all the projects are so great, but why am I so exhausted and feel like I can't function with having no time. So I'm finally honoring balancing out the artist in me with figuring out how to actually run a business. So that's my news for recently. Yeah.
So then if you can just move all this way down, and can you maybe share compare how you got started with how you see others getting started now in the industry?
That's a good question. I think that I see things very similar happening for other animators. I'm part of several animation groups on Facebook, and people reach out a bunch, and I still think that the best way to kind of come up is to find projects that you can pour yourself into, whether it's personal projects or your first few client projects. And even though you might not be making the rate that you think you should be making yet, I think that as long as you don't do that for a really long time, do it a couple times so you can really show the world what you have and have a reason to do it and a platform to do it. And I've been seeing a lot of people doing that, and I also think that the most successful people that I'm seeing do a lot of personal work as well. And I think that that's really important, not just to show the world what you can do, but also for your sanity. I let go of personal work for several years because it was all about client work, which was all awesome client work, but that's just not great for your brain, I would think.
So I think, and this is just my personal perspective, but coming out of school, graduating in 2010, everybody that graduated with me around that time was like, oh my god, it's so hard to find a job in your industry. And now it's great. If you can get out of school and get into your chosen field, that's incredible. Which is what I'm noticing now. A lot of people are able to go college, internship, which is awesome. It gives you a chance to learn, be an intern, make mistakes, and not have to, be able to learn from them and not put too much pressure on yourself because you're an intern. And, people are there to teach you and help you. But if that doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen for everybody, it didn't happen for me. And I never thought that it was my field. I really didn't. Just do that odd job. Keep dreaming. Keep throwing things at the wall. Keep sending your resume out. Keep making personal projects, like you were saying. Just do something to keep your art alive. Keep that creative fire burning, because if you're not in the job you want to be in, you will be eventually, and just use that as a stepping stone to get to the next point. Because if you aspire to move to a certain position, as long as you don't lose that dream, you're gonna make it there eventually. It's just a matter of when. And I learned early on not to compare myself to my classmates or to other people that were in my industry and how fast they got a promotion or how fast they got the career that I want. It's like I'm working at my pace and I'm doing the best that I can, and you gotta stay hungry and try to keep learning. You're never done, especially in this industry.
So if I think about my college friends, most of the people who I went to college with, not a lot of people actually made it into 3D industry, because first of all, 3D industry in Korea is very small to begin with, and it's very labor intensive industry still. So a lot of my friends who actually went to school with me, a lot of them went to like agencies and they stick around, but not a lot of people doing 3D. But my grad school was a little different because when I got to grad school, it was more about people who were already went through some life experience and they figure out, okay, this is the career that I want to take. So most people who I went to grad school with, they stick around and they're still doing what they wanted to do or something similar to what they wanted to do. For my case, so I started working when I was in high school. So I was lucky to get a marketing internship at EA. Actually, I don't know how, but I didn't even high school degree. And this lady, she was a lead marketing manager, and she liked one of the work that I did. It was like video editing. And she's like, so she asked me, so, oh, can you like edit some of this like promotional video? It was like something for like it was like Sims 3 at the time. They were releasing the Sims 3 game. It was like for like Korean like commercial and for like online, and I just did the work, and because at the time not a lot of people in Korea like was interested in YouTube or like editing video even for games, and that kind of got into like, okay, are you interested in an internship at EA for like marketing? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what to do with it, but she just taught me how to do it. So a lot of time I did like a lot of translation work and editing work and like editing subtitles and all that. So I started from the very bottom, and then that led me to another job where she introduced me to this like small indie game studio. So I started as a junior, like associate level game designer. So I would do like a lot of website design or like help the main lead like designers like figure out the new game we were wanting to make. Because that game studio was for kids arcade games, so it was a lot of like educational arcade games. So we were looking for a lot. So I did a lot of research work for them, and that's where I got interested in like a lot of technology at the time. Because I think that was around 2010, like 9 or 10, and it was I think Kinect was a big thing. So I did a lot of research for them, like, okay, how are we gonna use this technology to like engage like kids and like how to use like to utilize new technology. But I didn't know I wanted to do that as my career. And then I went to grad school because I really wanted to be a 3D artist. I really wanted to work for an animation studio. So I decided to go to grad school in New York City, got in, and went through all the courses. Did a lot of basics work with my 3D animations and all that. But when I graduated, she said yeah, it's really hard to get into the industry. It's like really tough to break in. So I did a lot of research. Like my friends so I applied for a lot of internship. I didn't got the internship, so I had to find out a way to get into the industry, and that's how I found VR. Almost by accident, but now I think about it, I was interested in even when I was looking at other student was working on thesis or with Office DK2 at the time, and that's how I got into VR. And I like where I'm at right now. At the time, I thought it was gonna be like a bridge job. So okay, I'm gonna work for this company for maybe a little while, but I'll go look for studio work that I want to do. But now I'm at the point that I actually really like what I'm doing, and I don't think I need to look for that because I think the career that I wanted to be was not the career that I actually wanted to be as I experienced a lot of things. So that's how I got into where I'm at, and yeah, so that's how I compare to other friends who went through the same experience.
When I think about comparing my start to the next wave, people who have graduated after me from SVA, I think about most importantly, SVA, the computer as a primary, I just one thesis film. But now they changed it so by the time you graduate, you basically have 2 short films. You do a group mini thesis your junior year. So by the time you graduate, you basically have 2 films, high quality films. I guess if you're lucky or stuff like that. I also think about just how quickly social media and the internet has grown and changed the way you can have self-publishing and self-promotion, that if you really are putting out quality work and you're a good person and you constantly putting your work up on Instagram or you're decent on Twitter, people end up finding you. And I've seen a lot of people get opportunities or tweeting out opportunities that way, where when I first graduated, social media wasn't being used in that sense. I think that also, I know for sure now that there's more online training and coursework, so school, whatever, is not for everybody, and you can kind of skip the actual academics part and get straight to just training professionally now. And also, the way YouTube is, that a lot of people are just throwing up information on there, 3D animation aside, you can I was looking up on YouTube how fix my makeup because it broke on the floor. And I was like, how did I fix it? Because it was hella expensive. Right. And it's like you can find like anything you need to on YouTube now where like you don't necessarily have to throw out or put yourself in this crazy student loan debt by going to an art school. Or you, if, like I said, if you're not even interested in school like that, you don't even have to do community college where you can do online courses. At the end of the day, people do want to see that you're talented, you're producing good content in a decent turnaround time, and then that you're a good person to work with, easy to work with. When I think about that in comparisons. So next, because all of you have shared your various experiences, but to get down to the nitty gritty, what has been some of the challenges, if you can maybe talk about 1-2 experiences in your career that you've experienced thus far, struggles?
Sure. Yeah, so I think the first thing I can think of, like literally like physical thing, other than, so when I first started VR, so I went to a studio, like Viacom, that was my first job as a VR artist. And they would give me the headset, like, okay, you never tried VR before, so try it out. So the first thing that I noticed actually is the headset itself. It's not meant for, because I wear makeup, and the first thing you notice, literally the first thing you notice, as soon as you take out the headset, you see makeup smudge all around. And you find out how the person who designed it and the person when they developed it was male biased, unfortunately, because the person who made was male. I'm not blaming them, but also this is like a huge barrier for us to break into the more consumer industry where half of the population, is women, and a lot of people, also male also wear makeup, but chances are we do wear more makeup in general in like day-to-day basis, and we want to make product that can be used in general consumer like day-to-day basis. And that's a huge blocker for a lot of people. It's like, first of all, not a lot of people want to actively want to wear the headset. And second of all, I don't want to wear my headset when I'm like, okay, my hair looks great, my makeup's on point, I have a date tonight, but I have to wear this headset for 8 hours today, So I think that's like one of the physical blocker. And I'm sorry, I'm glad that I'm here. I'm playing part of it because I don't know the solution yet, but also I'm glad that I'm still in part of it and I can voice my concern to like people who's developing maybe that I can tell them, hey, so I had this issue, I've been thinking about this issue. Do you have any solution, or can you think of any solution that we can come up with? So I think Microsoft's mixed reality headset is a good middle ground where it's not fully VR, but also the visor itself is not touching your face, so I think that's really great. It's not fully VR yet, but it's getting there. So I think that was like the first barrier that I experienced. It was like one of difficulty. And the other one is, so I'm fortunate that like Verizon and my team, 2 of our head executives are all women. So that's really fortunate that I'm part of the team that's like, very like equal and, very encourage diversity. But then also when it gets to our actual team itself, the ratio between women and men is very although we do have a lot of diversity in terms of like ethnicity, but still like we have about 8 people of like female employee compared to 80 people of male employees. So I don't know where that difference is coming from because I know we're not actually trying to only hire male, but also at the same time we don't get enough applicants, or I'm not sure if it's like we just not enough women is not applying, or maybe the way to approach people, maybe not encouraging women enough to like apply for it maybe. So yeah, that's another difficulty that we, like not just me, but as a team to figure it out how to break that in and how to hire and encourage more people to apply. Because I do remember
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Facebook, the algorithm, they were like hiring women, they use the artificial intelligence, and because the software was like trained to find for like ideal candidate, they somehow AI picked up as a male as a better candidate over female. So maybe that's might be it, so yeah, that was like a couple of difficult challenges that I think I can think of.
So for me, coming into the 3D industry.
Hello. So for me, coming into the 3D industry, I was acutely aware of the fact that I was female in a male-dominated industry. I was acutely aware of the fact that I was Black female in a predominantly male-dominated industry. And
I wish I could say that thought has completely left my mind and it doesn't, you know what I mean? But it does, and it's something that occurs every single day. I'm very much aware of how I may be perceived by somebody, especially by somebody who doesn't know me. And whatever preconceived notions they may have about my work ethic, about how much I know, given the fact that I am female, or where I went to school, or by color alone, you know what I mean? It happens. And so I found myself, and I still find myself, kind of trying to push myself to the limit, sometimes to a breaking point. And that's the biggest struggle, is because I'm still trying to prove something to myself that I am good enough. And that's the biggest struggle, is trying to figure out how to get past that point and how to find yourself worthy of your job. Because you're here for a reason. You have a job that you do for a reason. But what other people may see in you, a lot of times you can't see in yourself. And that is the biggest challenge, is to have confidence. And day by day, it gets better. But it's a personal thing for everybody, no matter what you do for a living. So just finding your own voice and finding your own strength and confidence in what you do is the most valuable thing that I've learned and am still learning, and probably will be learning for the rest of my life, like the rest of us. And it's a good thing, you always have to be open to growth. And this job has definitely taught me to do that, because we interface with so many different people, clients, coworkers, friends of coworkers, everybody. And I've gone from like a girl who barely speaks to a person face to face, to somebody who can, stand out on that deck on a Friday night in the summer and try to make friends. So it's a great place to grow and learn. And women, Black women, women of color, women in general, everybody has their own unique perspective on their life as it relates to work. And so don't shy away from that, just bring it in.
So I think that I have one of the benefits to working alone a lot of the time is that I don't have to deal with a lot of, gender discrimination, or even just like weird feelings about, because I just, for the most part, I've worked, for myself, and sometimes have animators in the studio, but a lot of time it's just freelancers around the world. And since clients are hiring me, I've been very lucky that I haven't been in really awkward, terrible situations, and I'm super thankful for that. And sometimes when I hear about those situations, I almost can't conceive of them. And then, so I feel very lucky about that. And I will say that I think recently, and I think this panel is like evidence of this, especially in New York, there are like so many places, I think, for not just women, but anyone to find groups of people that you can feel you can relate to, whether it's your gender and like as well as your job or your interests. And I think that there are so many places where we can go to feel comforted and find like camaraderie with other people that are in our job, area. This I think is an amazing panel. I'm so excited. I'm sure it's gonna keep going for a really long time. And then I'm also going to women in documentary filmmaking thing every month, and it's just, I feel like there's so many resources. And also on Facebook there's a million groups. So like if you are feeling, down about any sort of discrimination, or just feeling weird about where you are in your job or in your career, like definitely reach out and find places to go to get support, because I really think that they're there. And then on a totally other note, about a challenge that I have been going through in the last year, which I kind of talked about with deciding to take a business course. A challenge that I've recently faced is totally losing myself as an artist, because of all the jobs I was getting. And I think that is something that can happen for many reasons. One is that if you really want to keep pushing yourself and always making sure that you're doing the best that you can do, and also just a lot of times you put clients and you put jobs over yourself. And I almost brought that to the breaking point this past year where I was getting amazing jobs, like so cool, like really like big, going to like awesome film festivals, and like we're the only studio doing graphics and like super amazing things, but I'm somehow not excited about any of them. And I think that a huge challenge is to really, really take care of yourself and take care of your sanity and take care of like your goal. Like if you break it down, why are you in this industry? Like why are you really doing this? You know, or for me, it's like, why did I start a business to do this? And you get to like a few levels of why. It's like, well, because I want to maybe be in charge of my schedule so I can go on vacation and hang out with my family or whatever. And then if I think about that long enough, I'm like, if I traveled and hung out with friends and family and rested and took care of myself, after that, I would want to make more art. So like that is my driving motivator. So now I'm trying to like be smart about the business side of things so that I'm not overworking myself, so that I do have time left to make personal work, because I'm so much happier when I do that. And then when you are showing that to the world, whether it's Instagram, your website, or Twitter, you're gonna get more jobs because of that. You'll be happier. People will be seeing like what your like deep artistic soul wants to put out. And then the other part of that, I think, is trying to not compare yourself to everyone else in the industry, which is also very hard with social media, because you're just like I only follow like animation and like artists on Instagram, you know, like I don't even follow friends. Because it's just like you're constantly scrolling to like beautiful paintings and motion graphics and everything, and it's hard to not want to be like, oh man, I wonder if I can make that, or like how, you know. And I have found the most success when I like somehow can detach yourself from what you're seeing on the internet and like really connect to deeply what you want to make if you had all the time in the world. And I think that will make everything better for you, like sanity and clients and work and everything. So that is my like biggest challenge recently is taking care of my sanity and my business.
I'm going to double back to some of what Lauren was saying. Blue Sky is a super huge studio where they're located up in Connecticut. They're just like in the middle of nowhere. It was refreshing though. And it was a studio of about 500-ish people. By the time I got there, it was like off of the end of Ice Age. And out of the studio of that many people, there were probably about 10 Black people out of 500. Yeah, and where I was, by part of the studio, there was like only me in one corner, probably the other corner, another girl, and everybody else was across the studio because they were in animation. So at times it was like hard for me to figure out if some of the things I was experiencing at work were like racial microaggressions, or is it just I'm overthinking something? And I was fortunate enough to have like some coworkers that were very aware, and I could talk to them and they could tell me like, actually, no, that was pretty weird. Like, you did read into that correctly. And just ended up developing that kind of like friendship and having someone to talk about that with was helpful. Also, like you, Lauren, I was a person that like didn't really talk much, and that's why it's hilarious to me to be having a panel because I don't do the talking. But it took me like almost a year really to like find my voice and feel comfortable speaking up. And the story department, you're there very closely with like the leads of not only story but some other departments. You're there with directors and producers, and they're working at the time. It was like the beginning of Spies in Disguise comes out later this year, and the main character is like a Black man. And I was like, nobody in here can just relate to this character that we're all talking about. And it was like the studio, thankfully enough, they have a system where everyone can send in notes and commentary after we see animatics, and we can be transparent about the things that we're saying we received. And I was just like, this character like sounds like Samuel L. Jackson, and they're supposed to be like this young 20-year-old Black man, and like they would not say these kind of things. And I kind of felt like responsible to, like, I have to say this. And then it was just bad. Like, and once I started speaking up and understanding that I'm being received well, like, I was just like kind of confident you also have that I was a PA and like there's like this hierarchy career wise, like you don't want to be the PA that's talking out of turn, but you also feel like you have some sort of responsibility and just like this character being depicted as best as they can, being given like who's creating the film. And that was just a challenge. Definitely by like the end of it, I felt more comfortable. I actually started being more myself too. Like I realized like I was being a very like work version of myself. And once I kind of let that go and was just able to be more like letting my guard down and feel more comfortable, that allowed also my coworkers and the supervisors to feel like we're all actually getting to know each other. So I would say that. And that actually leads me to like if you guys have any like race or gender specific experiences that you kind of were like maybe not at the moment you didn't think it was something, but it turned out to be something more a little bit later. Do you have any stories like that? You Julie shaking, you're nodding. Yeah.
I do actually, in contrast to what I just said, sometimes I do actually work at studios. Like if I need a break from running a business, I'll literally just go be an animator somewhere, which is great because then they have to deal with the clients and I just so completely work. And recently I was at a studio where, you know, there was just like the director of the documentary was just like, it's kind of awkward. He would just sit with me every lunch and like sometimes I'm awkward too, and I was like, I don't know if this is a me thing or like, what is this conversation we're having? And it just, you know, it kept happening. I just kept getting weird vibes from him and thinking that it was totally all me. And being fine with it because, like, you know, you want to be like, you want to be the cool one. Like, yeah, I can deal with whatever's happening right now. Like, we can still talk about whatever. And then after I left, I found out that he had like several very major sexual harassment charges against him, and like HR was like doing a case, and guess what? Nothing happened. Wow. So he's still there, and super awkward. But like it was after I left, and I was like, oh my god, I wasn't crazy. Like this deep like thing that was happening that I just. You know, and again, like I work by myself a lot of the time, so I was like, I'm just awkward. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this anymore. So that was like terrifying. I was like, great, I can't wait to go back to my little studio.
Yeah, thinking. Even now, I'm just like trying to think. Okay, was it something that relates to my gender or anything? Or was I overreacting? But there was a case I didn't got the job. Well, I didn't go for it, but I think I went to interview at one point, and it was going well. I did like a Skype interview first, and they asked me to get in to the office. So I went to the office. I talked to all the team members, and then this one the guy, he was happened to be the animator. He threw this like a Pikachu toy at me. And they hit right on my face at the time. Yeah, it was very awkward. And at the time, because I needed a job, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, act normal. I'm just gonna, pretend nothing happened. Like, I know this is real life happening. So I was like, okay, at the time, I was like, I'm panic, but also at the same time, like, I was like, I still need the job, so I'm just gonna, behave and, just like drop, it's like, just pick it up, ha ha ha, laugh, and I left, and then on the way back, I was taking Uber and I was like crying because I was like so upset that happened. And later I heard, because one of the managers, she also saw, and she later texted me, hey, I'm so sorry what happened. And she was like going after him, like, why did you do that? His answer was like, well, because I looked a little uptight, so he wanted to see if how I react, So that was, at the time, I was like so upset that happened. I was like, I wish I spoke up for myself. I wish, I had the courage to like, hey, that's not cool. What do you expect? I'm here to get the job, and I'm in the vulnerable position here where I'm not gonna yell at you or anything because I don't want to jeopardize what I'm going through. But yeah, that was not a fun experience. Yeah, I think that was the worst interview that I had. Oh yeah.
It's not, it's less of a interview experience, but more just like a day-to-day project type of experience. So I guess I've been here for about 6 years. So when I first transferred from being like a runner to an artist, it's awkward for like a myriad of reasons. Like I'm working next to the people who I just made a latte, the week before. And I still felt the pressure to like clear the dishes out of the room and wash the mugs and still do my old job while I was doing my new one. So after a little bit, we got to a point where I worked in a separate suite with people, little pod type area. And, you know, it was great. I genuinely liked the people I was working with. It's just sometimes, like, they would, you know, make jokes and have conversations. And I wasn't offended. Like, I wanted to join in. But then sometimes people would say, oh, don't say that, there's a lady in the room. You know? And it's like, okay, so why can't we just talk like normal people? If you're gonna say something, say it. You know what I mean? Don't censor yourself from my sake. Because I don't want to see who I'm working with. I want to know who I'm sitting next to. Just be yourself, you know? So that was kind of the biggest issue, you know, that I found myself facing as a female. It's like, what are people saying? You know, like, what kind of censorship's going on? Like, I would just rather see people for who they are, scars and all, you know, warts and all. Just don't censor yourself because you're afraid you're gonna, especially if you call it out. Like, I don't want to hurt your feelings, or girl, you might get offended. That just makes things worse. You know, it wouldn't have been a thing if it wasn't made to be a thing. So that was my gripe, I guess, as a recent thing.
I'm gonna start visually and come back down around here. How can we start seeing more women's representation and from not only the content that is being created, but also content creators?
Like on any platform or just in general?
Well, in relation to this industry.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think there are. I feel like there is a ton of diversity already with who is making content and who's putting it out. I think it's just that we need to be more aware of that. But I think, especially in the last few years, I've seen like way more lady animators come out of the woodwork, you know, and I think it's for many reasons. I think part of it is because of like, you know, the movement that's happening right now. So people are more conscious of their decisions of who, you know, of who they feature, who they look for. I mean, yeah, I think that the people are there. I think the content is there.
Then maybe how can we as a community help them get seen?
I mean, I think it's mostly a confidence thing. I think it's really building up women's confidence and being artists and whatever kind of artist it is, whether it's animation or CG or making sure that everyone knows that it's really okay to be a female animator or female whatever you want to be. And I think that probably starts also with our like younger generation and like really start to integrate that with the earliest ages possible and make sure that it really starts from the beginning. Now we're kind of working with like trying to take years of societal like trauma off of all of the women in the industry. And I think that is working. So like we should keep doing that and keep like building each other up and making sure that as women we are supporting each other. And then also pave the way for the younger generation so that it's not as hard in the future, you know. But I feel like there's a lot of hope right now. I've seen like so many amazing women in their art like all over the place. And I hope that everyone else is seeing that as well. But I think it's just really about supporting each other and going to these types of events and like, you know, if you need advice or you want advice or you can give advice, like communicate with each other and like really be there for each other. And that's like what this documentary filmmaking for ladies group that I go to is about. It's like we like stand around at this like Lower East Side bar and like introduce each one of us and like the projects that we're working on, the projects that we want to be working on. And someone can be like, I really need an editor and this is a personal project and you know, whatever. It's like just an awesome way to share like what your job is and what your deep passion is and like how we can help each other. So I think it's really just about communicating and like meeting up. especially if you're an animator, you probably do work at home alone a lot. It's nice to get out and make friends.
So yeah, I definitely agree that we need to see more of what we do at a younger age. I went to school outside of Philly, do 15 minutes, and I know for sure I was teaching my teacher about Photoshop. You know, before he even got to a lesson, I was telling him, I hate to be the person to tell you you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. And I didn't even connect that to a career. It was just, oh, this is fun. People Photoshop, their friends or whatever. But it wasn't apparent that this is something people do. And I'm still sitting there thinking I want to be a painter. So getting into college and being up against all of these kids who had a programming education or who had an animation education in high school, I felt like, what am I doing here? These kids are whipping out amazing stuff freshman year. I can barely make a cube. So, exaggerating a bit, but that's how it felt. And I think just having access and less disparity between different, and this is a problem to begin with, but just having kind of an equal opportunity across schools would be ideal, obviously, it goes without saying. If I had had the option to have that class, I might have taken it at that age. And if I had seen other women that looked like me working in this industry, I definitely would have taken it. The visibility is like step one, just knowing that this job exists. People that look like you do this job. Like, don't rule it out, just because, it seems like, oh, I can't do it, it's not for me. I feel like we're really lacking that visibility in certain schools because I know I want to go back to my school and bring what I did to them so that they can see this really fun job. I know a lot of people would have loved to do this job. Really super talented people who didn't know where to go with their talent, friends. And I just kind of want to show everybody what I found by accident, And so, that would be perfect.
I agree with Lauren. Giving people, accessibility and giving them, opportunity to experience all that. Because especially my industry is still very male dominant industry, whereas tech and also VR, AR are very new, so a lot of people still figuring out. So there's not enough opportunity for people to actually try it out. So for me, part of my role, it was never in my job description per se to represent, but still, I think I feel responsible for make sure my voice is heard to be part of this project, this product we're working on. Make sure I represent myself and all the community that was not normally represented. So I always remind myself to okay, because a lot of times I come from South Korea, and South Korea is very we are influenced heavily towards more of a white culture in America. Because when it got to it, it was we hit in the face very heavily. So we never actually had a chance or access to any other culture other than white, Western Hollywood culture per se. So when I got here, I had to relearn all that. I had to okay, there's more than Hollywood culture that I've known because we just don't have accessibility. So I always remind myself that okay, so now I'm in VR, so I'm kind of the sort of pioneer to this war. So I make sure I just represent everybody. I make sure I include everybody. So when someone out there use my product or our project, they see themselves in the project. So I think that's one of the biggest part to engage more people. And also making sure we just use the right word and use the right language to convey all the project and make sure we're not biased to any current very male biased industry right now.
To help promote visibility and awareness of women doing these type of things, I agree with having panels and opportunities like this because I am currently doing a part-time job for a VR pop-up, and Julie's studio actually has some artwork that's there, and it was actually funny because I had just reached out to Julie to be on the panel, and I get to work and I see her name in her studio, and it's just I really didn't know. I'm completely new to this VR world and experience, but here's already a woman that like I'm getting to know that's in this world. And then to hear Olivia talk about the makeup part, like that's a big issue. Like for me at work and troubleshooting, like even today, I'm like, I can't put this on because I'm gonna mess up my makeup for tonight. And like, I can't. Yeah, and that's like a constant thing. It's like, what are the workarounds? What are the things that are the people that are creating these headsets? What are they doing to kind of meet us halfway as well on that? And also for like me and looking for a mentorship, like I just don't personally know Black women who have been in the industry for a long period of time. Like I don't know them. I don't know where they exist. I feel like most of them are in California. There should be some here. It's still on my personal journey to meet them, but it's just like we have to create spaces for us just to also just meet each other. We're here in New York because now we get to know Olivia, who works in like VR and AR, and Julie that works in VR and AR, and Lauren who does like CG and AR, all those stories. And other people in the audience have like similar backgrounds, interests, and want to build up that experience. And it's just by connecting, networking, showing up for each other too, resharing each other's work, and just like helping to all like we push one person forward, but then they should always be like also reaching back and just like helping to keep the door open for us to like pass through in that. But does anyone have any kind of last words or comments before I open it up for Q&A? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally haven't mentioned my AR stuff at all because that's my direct. But that's my personal work has like led into hosting these AR art shows, which is all coming back to me taking time for myself because when I like had time to make personal work, I started basically animating these little fine art loops for Instagram, and then realized I could set them up with an AR app, print them out on really nice paper, and have like an art show basically where these prints come to life with really detailed animation, combining all of my skills again. And that has really taken off, and I've curated like 6 or 7 shows across like Manhattan and Brooklyn in the last year, which has been super awesome. And like the fact that we're at the Future of Storytelling right now is like incredible. But one thing I want to say about that is, to be totally honest with you guys, I learned how to use this app to do this, make these prints. And immediately I was like, wow, I should do a show and like invite all my animator friends, none of whom know anything about AR. And because part of me is like, it's so much fun when we do it all together. And we can like fill the whole room with like all different styles of animation. And then there's like the voice in the back of my head being like, don't give away your secret. You're making these like super cool magic prints, and if you tell everyone how to do it, then like you're gonna, everyone else is gonna get better than you, and you're not gonna, you're gonna fall behind. So it I wasn't ever gonna just not tell anyone how to do it, because like again, it's way more fun to do with people. But I think that like acknowledging that I kind of saw it and even like telling you guys about it, but now like obviously I didn't do that. And I like have brought together like 20 animators and taught them how to use this AR app and like taught them how to create pieces for the AR app so that they track really well, they like track instantly, and like also help them kind of mess with the viewer's brain as much as possible, which I think is fun. But I think that was a really awesome opportunity for me to like give these animators experiences that they would never otherwise have, which is to be in a gallery show. And people don't watch animation unless you're like in the industry or you're watching someone's feature film. So this has been great to like share our industry with people. And it's been really great to share it with like just other animators and give them the opportunities to like be at a show like that. And all that being said, I am doing these shows like pretty consistently, and I'm getting like almost like too many opportunities with it. So, if anyone has like questions about that or interested in doing something with AR or art and animation, like let me know. And I think that it's a super exciting new genre. So like that's an opportunity for people to ask questions and learn more and try new things, and like you're saying, like bring people up with you, and so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty cool experience. I thought it was really cute, and I didn't know what to expect. At first I forgot like it was an actual like experience until they told me to download the app. And then, yeah, I was like, for me, working in that VR experience right now, again, it was just like a part-time like hustle job, but it's really opened my eyes. The name of the entity or the company is called Future of Storytelling, and it's such a pun in the things that you're experiencing. Like, there's a one documentary, it's 20 minutes, but like you're sitting right next to the people in the documentary. And for me, it was such an emotional piece. Like you want to turn away, but you really like can't because you're surrounded by everyone like talking about the story. Then there's the animation part. There's another short where like you're a character in this 3D animation. There's just like so many different things. So just through that experience, it's been like opening my eyes, like to just. I got into the industry wanting to like work for Disney and Pixar. By the time I graduated college, I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to do like I want to work with independent shorts, and just like VR has really opened my mind. Like independent shorts can be viewed so differently, and like even with your gallery, your small art pieces, that's something that could be like a bit more attainable to do by one or two people to do something like that. But no one else has anything to say.
One thing I neglected to mention that I take for granted is that I do have a sister who actually does, we're in the industry together in a different respect. So if I ever need to then events like this are incredible, and I'm so glad to be able to be here for something like this because I didn't even know it existed. Awesome. That's so good. But I've been taking advantage of, having a sister who does the same thing. In the interim, we can vent to each other because, like, sometimes you can just tell we have shared experiences. Even working here, it was, funny, but one of those things. I don't know how to take this. Is that we look pretty similar, about the same age. Somebody would start a conversation with her or with me, and finish it with the other person. And you guys look so similar. And it's like, I don't know how to take that. That's what it's like. Am I making too much out of it? But we still laugh about it. It's just one of those things. It's a rare experience that
So that was the DiverseToons Women Taking the Lead panel audio from March 2019 at the Mills NYC location. I want to thank you for making it through this episode. I know the audio was a little shaky, but just know that I edited it. So imagine how it sounded just without any editorial magic happening to it, right? I also want to take the time just to say thank you for the support and the feedback from the first two episodes of season 2. It's like it didn't almost, but it's made me even a little bit emotional with just the amount of support, the reshares, people texting me and commenting and, engaging with the episode. I really, really appreciate that. Coming up, my next episode will feature one of my friends, a guest, and I'm just happy like we did the conversation. So if you know me, I don't watch anime. Like, it's just not my thing. I have nothing against it. And if you don't know me, then you didn't know that, but now you do. So this episode, I'm going to be talking with my friend about a couple anime stuff, and he's super into anime. Like, I asked him to send me 3 like shows, and he did that. But on the side, he also sent me like a list of, like, I kid you not, maybe like 20 something animes, right, that he's watching. And so the conversation is just really fun. It's different from this whatever type of stuff. Thank you. As always, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week, good weekend, a good whatever time of the day of your life that you listen to this. May it be well, and I shall be talking to you later. Bye.